Okay, so I'm going to try this here. I'm going to try this kind of live. This is the video of me doing day 2. So you can see over here that I'm starting with the day 1, just the record of tasks file, and I'm going through and making changes here. Now, we talked about today in class that HTML is a markup language made of symmetric tags. And over here, I'm looking at an example of a basic HTML5 template or boilerplate or blank sheet. Basically, all of this stuff on the left-hand side here, starting from doc type down to the closing HTML tag, is the structure of an HTML document. Excuse me, a structure of an HTML document. And nothing would appear on this web page other than a title in the application bar. This is HTML5 boilerplate. So I'm taking that pile and I'm going to make it into a Python dictionary. I think I called it HTML parts, HTML types. Yeah, so there's the header part, there's the footer part, and syntax highlighting is hard, so I want to put them all in one little row. Let me go back, make sure we've seen that. So HTML parts, Python dictionary, header, footer. This is just text. And that's the entire point about HTML, is that even though the web browser will interpret that sequence of characters in a particular way, especially the ones that use the special characters, the angle brackets and whatnot, it's just text. So here I am opening a random file for writing, and I'm putting the HTML header into there, and then I'm writing some plain text, or I put in some /n new lines, and I put in some BR. These are the HTML break new lines. And then I write the footer in. Whoops. So I write the text in. I write the footer in. And I close the file. And then I can open that same file. You can see it here in my work directory. And you'll notice that the /n's that I wrote into that text page do not appear as either spaces or as characters. Oops, as spaces or in characters in the HTML files. The BRs don't appear, but they do make line breaks. So Python, we use /n for new line and /t for tab. That's fine if we're working with a Python string, they will render there, but if we're trying to make stuff happen in HTML, we've got to use HTML tags. This is me being fancy, where I'm trying to make it so that I can add on the HTML part and keep the text thing happening at the same time. So I'm doing a little bit of work here to make it so that there's a choice in the form. I played with this for a long time. I don't think it was a good idea. But you can see here the basic crop types. This was the old just plain text. This is the one for HTML where I'm putting in the header and the footer. This is where I'm going to quickly realize that I have split this into doing text or HTML format, but I need to split it into one because this version is going to put the header and the footer over and over and over around every line rather than just on the front. This is me going and doing a lot of research on the open function to make sure that I understand how all the different modes work. This is me going through and looking for information about how to adjust the file pointer to put the text in at the right spot. This is a long conversation that gets me to the fact that although you can do it, you really shouldn't. Because moving the file pointer by bytes, where these are the bytes, is really tricky and precise. And I don't like that. If I can avoid tricky and precise, I will. So here's the point where I ask the important question. where I say, this looks really complicated. Is there a better way for me to do this? And it's like, yeah, the better way to do it is just to overwrite the entire file, which is what we did in class today. So this is me going back and changing the structure. So now now I'm going to be checking if there's something in the file already. And if there's not, I write everything in. Otherwise, I'm going to try to go in and figure out exactly where to put something in just behind it. Oh, however, you can see me still adding header in here because I'm not thinking it through. This is where I discovered that in R+ mode, you can write to the file, but it always will come in and append to the end. And this is where I am getting the process of opening the file in R+ mode to check the read lines. But then if I open it and write stuff in, I close it afterwards. But here, I will even close it now and open the same file again in writing mode so that I can overwrite and put the full contents back in. So what you're seeing here that I keep popping back to, oh, I forgot I'm up here now. This is the record of tasks, that HTML file that I keep generating. And you can see where I'm recognizing my problems. Here, I open with the header, but then I put another header in the middle. I've still not recognized, oh, there it is. That's where I finally realized I still had HTML parts header sitting there as part of my row. I wonder why the header keeps showing up, Andrew. This is me going back and adjusting my formatting strings over and over again until I get the right number of spaces and the right amount in there. Again, I could be smart enough and know all this stuff ahead of time and not have to go through the iterative process, but I'm not. That doesn't mean I can't do it. I just have to be able to be willing to make mistakes and wander through the wilderness of confusion. I've learned that when I want to put the BRs in there, it's much better to start the line with a BR rather than putting it at the end. When I try to put them at the beginning and the end, all of my end lines, all of my end BRs wind up there at the very bottom doing absolutely nothing. So now I'm going to go do the advanced section, which is to try to put HTML table tags around each of these entries. Now, a table is HTML format. Here, I can do it here. In HTML, a table has, it starts with a table, which means it has to have a table tag that ends. Then there is each row for the table starts and ends. And then inside each row, there's a certain number of cells, how many columns there are. For each one of those, that is a TD. I don't remember why it's called D. Table display, table doohickey, I don't know. So if I do this, whoops. That is a 3-column row of a table. There's also one more in here, which is, I think it's table head. And the heading row is just, it's just another one that is, it's just another row, but it's set up to be possibly a different color or different formatting because, you want the header row to possibly be something different. So this is the structure of an HTML table that has no content in it. So when I say I'm going to try to turn the record of tasks into an HTML table, I mean trying to set up enough extra strings in here so that I can have my date and update line, the date in one and the update line in another. And I guess in this format, I don't need 3. And so that means for each row, each new row would have specific date and then specific update. So this is what I'm going to be trying to do in Python here. I'm going to be trying to take these extra strings and wrap them around the update line. So you can see up here, I'm adding 2 more parts to my HTML parts thing. I'm adding table start, where you can see the opening table tag, the table row, the table heading for timestamp and update. Oh, I'm sorry. Table heading replaces the TD, not the TR. So it's still a table row, table heading for the titles, and then my table end is just the closing table tag. And yeah, I went and asked GPT. It says, show me how I can use the join method to put open and close tags on the piece. Now, I asked it to do something, and it told me something completely different. This is a list comprehension, which is a way of taking all the items in a particular list and doing something to them. Normally, we run a function. Here, we're making a f string out of them. And then once we modify all of those items in the list, then we can do the join string on it. List comprehensions to make elements and wrap them around and stringify them by joining on the empty string. And so here I am. Whatever my X is in update line, I'm going to put a table cell plus and minus in front, or open and close around that one. And then I'm going to join all those things together out of that list, and I'm going to stick them together into a line break in front of a row, closing by a row. I think the line break is actually superfluous, but I can't click on that. That's a video. This is me going through and changing my formatting check, because I kept trying to get it to work on either the text or the HTML or both. And the way I was checking it was failing for this particular reason right here. This question says, if output format equals H, and what I'm trying to say is that if it's H or if it's B, but what I've written is if output format equals the string H or the letter B exists. And so guess what? We always wind up here where the letter B exists because the letter B exists. So instead of doing equals, I decided to change it so that I have a list of possible options called formats, and I'm checking those pieces. But if we look here, you can see that my tables are coming together. Here's the timestamp column. Here's the update column. Do I have some alignment issues? Do I have a question of how many characters my table should support? Absolutely. HTML tables are kind of a pain in the butt. So just because I've gotten the bare version of it to work doesn't mean that it looks good at all. But there we are.